final vote on the final official plan amendment.
Welcome everyone. It is Wednesday, June 24th. Welcome to a special meeting of the council to consider the settlement boundary review. Roll call. Councillor Kennis and Councillor Hippel are absent with notice. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Motion to approve this evening's agenda. Councillor Pelkman, second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Opposed, if any. That motion carries. With that, I'm going to turn it right over to, I'm not sure who wants to deal with it. Mr. Williams, you can do the introductions, and we'll turn it over to you folks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
Before, I imagine there's going to be questions from members of council. Ask we at least save them all to the end. It'll make it go more fluid. So let's ask all questions at the end of the presentation.
Yeah, so this evening is the public meeting for the settlement area boundary expansion, SABE. You're going to see that acronym a number of times tonight. WSP is here to provide a presentation and assist as we move through the comments from members of the community as well as from council. And we'll be taking this information back, formulating. Some answers may come tonight, but other answers would come once we've done some review of that. And a final recommendation report will be coming back to council. So with that, I will turn it over to Rob from WSP to introduce himself and Matt. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Williams, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the community who have taken the time to be here with us this evening to discuss the settlement area boundary expansion. This is a very important initiative that has been undertaken by the county and the municipality for a number of years now. And I want to emphasize, among other things this evening, that this has been a process of listening. We've had very good and ongoing consultation with council, with staff, with landowners, with members of the community, and we've heard a lot of very good input and different perspectives on this matter. And that dialogue and conversation continues this evening. There are no decisions being recommended or being considered tonight. We're here to listen, receive the feedback and input from councils and members of the community, and as Mr. Williams noted, we'll take all of that feedback and input away and into consideration, and we'll return at a future date for consideration of council adoption. My name is Rob Rappelt. I'm with WSP. I'm a land use planner, and I'm joined by my colleague Matt Rodriguez this evening, and we're both in council's hands tonight. Next slide, please. Just in terms of a brief overview of the presentation, we'll spend a little bit of time highlighting work that has been completed to date that has brought us to tonight's meeting. We'll present the recommended approach to accommodating growth over the next several decades, and we'll outline next steps in the process. Next slide. So firstly, just looking back and understanding where this process has been and how we've got to this evening, I'll walk through some key highlights of that. Next slide, please. The settlement area boundary expansion is a component of the broader Growing Together initiative that has been undertaken by the county municipality. It largely has included official plan amendments 13 and 14 and the technical work that had gone into the Growing Together Strathroy-Caradoc official plan review. Of course, the County of Middlesex official plan is also an important guiding policy document. And from that, and most recently, the land needs data that was released or is available as of April 2026, which has had some important implications on this process, and I'll speak to those momentarily. And last but certainly not least, the evolving provincial land use planning framework and landscape. Most recently, provincial planning statement in 2024, which has had some important implications with regards to how the county and how the municipality plans for growth. Beyond the land use planning policy, we've, as I've mentioned, also had a tremendous amount of consultation and dialogue with the community, with council and with landowners. And all of that has been taken into consideration with our recommendations this evening. Next slide, please. So briefly, what is a settlement area boundary expansion? It's effectively identifying additional land that is required or has been identified to be required to accommodate projected growth. And the settlement area boundary expansion is a process that is an outcome of provincial direction, or what the province requires municipalities to do throughout Ontario, and that is to manage growth over the long term. And so this process has implemented that provincial direction, and through the evaluation process that we'll speak to this evening, we have identified a number of different areas for which future growth is recommended to be accommodated. Next slide, please. The initial work that started the settlement area boundary expansion process involved 2 stages. Stage 1 being study area delineation and evaluation criteria. So there was a larger, broader area of land that was identified in the periphery of Mount Bridges and Strathroy. Through the evaluation criteria, that was narrowed down into the studied area evaluation and the identification of the specific lands that is being recommended to council this evening, and that is reflected in the stage 2 body of work. Next slide, please. So where are we now? Next slide. The project first initiated several years ago in 2022. It involved the stage 1 and stage 2 evaluation work, as well as initial consultation with the community and with landowners and with council. The project was briefly put on pause in 2025 as a result of updated provincial direction, principally being the provincial planning statement, which fundamentally changed how municipalities manage and plan for growth. And it was reinitiated about a year ago once the dust had settled on that provincial direction, and there was a good understanding of what the implications meant for this process. Since that time, we've been moving forward with the technical work and the identification of the specific lands that are being recommended. And of course, this evening is the statutory public meeting, which is required under the Planning Act for official plan amendments. And we have also recently held 2 public open houses to consult directly with the community. Next slide. Since the 2024 recommended scenario before the project was put on pause, this is just a brief highlight of the number of different changes and information that has become available to the project team and has informed the study. As I mentioned, that includes the provincial planning statement, the new county growth projections, official plan amendment, OPA 14, and the related appeals, Vision 2055, and the county land needs assessment as of April 2026. And I'll speak to the importance of that land needs assessment momentarily. Next slide, please. So draft approach to accommodating growth. So this is going to highlight the key elements from the stage 2 evaluation matrix that really forms the basis of the recommended lands. Next slide, please. The summary of the overall land need, there's quite a bit of information on this slide, but the most important thing that I'd like to bring to council's attention is the additional community area that's required. And that represents about an additional 187 hectares, more than what was identified previously through the initial 2024 work. And this is an outcome of that updated land needs data as of April 2026. And there's been no change, I'll just highlight also no change to the required employment areas within the municipality. Next slide, please. So key considerations with regards to the study area evaluation, these largely reflect what we would consider to be good planning principles in terms of how growth is planned for and accommodated over the long term. It includes the infrastructure that's required to service that growth, locations in proximity to Highway 402. Both community employment areas are desirable, and there are existing transportation trails and parks and recreation projects that can support those growth. Both of those considerations reflect aspects of connectivity between the recommended settlement area boundary expansion lands and their connectivity to surrounding land uses and communities. It's important to note that the growth area should also avoid high quality soil conditions, and a detailed agricultural operations and minimum distance separation review will be included in the planning justification report, which will come forward to council when the recommendation is made for your consideration for adoption. And lastly, new development needs to be compatible with existing development and promote a range and mix of housing options within the community area portion of the recommended settlement area boundary expansion areas. And this really is emphasizing the importance that the additional land is required to accommodate that growth, and within that growth we need to ensure that, that folks have access to a range of different housing options and everyday amenities, including commercial uses. Next slide, please. I won't go through this slide in detail, but we did want to include it just to demonstrate the tremendous amount of consultation and dialogue that has occurred through this process over the last several years, again with council, with the community, with landowners and key stakeholders. And all of that has been taken into consideration throughout the process, and same with this evening. The input and feedback that we'll receive will certainly be taking that into consideration as we refine the final recommendation. Next slide, please. So the recommended approach, and I'll speak to both Strathroy and Mount Bridges in more detail on the following slides, but the total community area that is required to, or lands that is required to accommodate community area growth is 309 hectares, and employment area, the total area is 62 hectares. There are a few housekeeping matters that are being addressed through this exercise as well that aren't directly related to accommodating growth or growth management. And those represent about 13 hectares. Next slide, please. So in Strathroy, perhaps just note that generally speaking, there's been a historical split growth between Mount Bridges and Strathroy of about 70% and 30%, or roughly thereabouts. The proposed settlement area boundary expansion follows a similar guideline or similar rule. So it's proposed to allocate about 212 hectares of community area lands in Strathroy and 62 hectares of employment area lands. Next slide, please. Within Mount Bridges, there is no additional employment area lands that were identified as being acquired through the employment land strategy, and so really the land that's identified for Mount Bridges represents that community area, which includes obviously housing, but also everyday amenities, commercial uses, parks and open space, etc. Next slide, please. Happy to go into detail if council has questions around the housekeeping updates, but perhaps just in the interest of time in this presentation, I'll skip this slide for now, as well as this slide, please. So in summary, the approach that has informed the proposed settlement area boundary expansion advances municipal priorities and provincial direction, target strategically located community area expansions that are needed in order to provide that full range of housing options and everyday amenities for future and current residents. Supports employment area expansions in Strathroy that will help protect existing industrial parks for non-employment uses. And minimizes the outward expansion of the municipality's urban areas into lands that I know are of importance to the community and council, such as agricultural land and the natural environment system. Next slide, please. In terms of next steps, as Mr. Williams and myself noted at the outset of the presentation, we will take all the feedback and input received this evening into consideration as we look to refine and finalize the recommended settlement area boundary expansion and implementing official plan amendment for future consideration for council for adoption. And we're currently targeting next month to return to council. So once again, we're in your hands tonight, council and members of the community, and we'd be pleased to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for the presentation. To the members of the public that are here this evening, might you have questions or comments? Let us go through council questions and then comments first, and we'll open it up to any members of the public that wish to speak. I'm going to ask when you do so, just go to the microphone. I'm sure everybody has loud voices, but we need to hear what's being said. So allow us to go through the council questions and that first, and then we'll turn it over to the public for your comments and questions. Okay, I'm going to open up to Councillor Pelkman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the WSP planners. Is there any problem with us adding lands to the lands that you have identified? And if we did add lands, what would we have to do to get there?
Thanks, Councillor, for the question. And through the Mayor.
Plain on, you can dispense with the formality. Just go ahead and answer the question. That makes it easier.
Perfect. Great. Councillor, what I'd say is that we're in your hands today. The recommended official plan amendment and justification report that's in front of you is, from our professional planning opinion, the best path forward on balance of all of the criteria, all of the factors and inputs through this process. And so certainly any feedback or direction that we receive today, we'll take away and consider and reconcile and reflect in an ultimate recommendation that comes forward. And so this is certainly the opportunity for us to take that feedback and that direction and consider how it all weighs out. And again, this is our planning recommendation, what we're comfortable recommending. And again, we'd want to have the opportunity to receive that input, respond to it, and come back again as part of that subsequent report.
Councillor Peltman.
All right, then as a follow-up, I know I'd spoke to you before about looking at the lands on the west side of Trout Creek, and in fact, you have now selected some lands on the west side of Trout Creek. The one thing that I noticed, so I live on the very southwest side of town, so Parkview. I'm about as far corner as you can get on that side, and it is quite a walk from that point to get to Walmart or Giant Tiger. But the lands on the immediate side of Trout Creek, on the Mount Bridges side of Carroll, is a much closer walk. And I know that when we extended the sewer system to go from the pump station on Park Street to go around Trout Creek and then around to the sewage treatment plant, there's capacity there, and I believe I know because I asked that there's stubs along that way for some of those properties. So I'm just curious, not curious, I would like to add at least the very first property on that side, because I think it squares up the municipality from getting too stretched out on one side when most of the commercial stuff is off center towards the west side of the municipality.
So, Councillor, what I would also say to that suggestion as well is that as part of us taking away this input in this direction, the provincial planning statement is pretty clear around how far out into the future that the municipality can plan, really, again, stemming from the county official plan. There's some flexibility in the provincial planning statement around going beyond this 30-year horizon, but the PPS is pretty firm that from a residential or that community area need, we need to kind of stick to that number that's been assigned to us by the county through this process. And so, again, we're in your hands to receive that direction, but what would ultimately come forward would still achieve that number and would reflect sort of a redistribution of some of those lands to achieve that amount of community area land that the municipality needs.
So if we were to add that piece of property, you'd have to subtract from somewhere else?
Potentially, yes.
Councillor Wilsey.
That plays into one of the questions I had. I remember we've done a number of projects over our term of council here. I'm thinking of Burnbrae, where we had the commercial surrounded by residential. And when I'm looking at these, I'm just going to talk about Strathroy right now. We'll talk about Mount Bridge later. So I think what we're talking about is if I look at S2, the commercial area that's coming, and then just put that together with the fact that we're trying to keep residential and commercial and industrial uses separate from each other, I see that there really is no way for S2. I realize it's on a county road, but we're surrounding it by commercial, and we're also building housing directly across from other commercial area. So I'd almost think that we could find a place beyond S2 that would potentially have better 402 access, not be surrounded by residential, and maybe fit future growth. Like for me, it doesn't seem like surrounding a commercial and industrial area with residential is good planning going forward, especially when the planners have told us on multiple indications that that's not good planning.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Wilsey. What I'd say to that is the PPS and county official plan provide pretty clear direction around growth of existing settlement areas. I think your suggestion is well noted in terms of broader conversations about long-term industrial and employment land need in the community, where that could be, is it contiguous? But really this process followed the council endorsed criteria that said we're going to look at lands contiguous with the settlement area through this process. We weren't opening up sort of a new site selection process. That's quite a much more involved process that includes land economics and understanding what could be appropriate. And so we can certainly take away and take away the comment around, is this the planning justification report will also provide that rationale of this location within Strathroy. But really through this process, we are looking at those employment lands that are contiguous with the boundary.
As a follow-up.
Yeah, follow-up, yep, go ahead.
So, as a follow-up, my comment wasn't that we shouldn't be looking at contiguous lands. My follow-up is that we shouldn't be putting in new land for commercial without a plan to develop around it, and we shouldn't be surrounding it with residential. That's really where it came from. I didn't bring up contiguous at all. Just looking at the plan, I don't see how we expand, because we're running into issues with commercial being so close to residential in other areas of the town, and we're just encouraging this for the future. We're not solving anything, we're creating future problems.
Sorry, Councillor, can you just clarify, when you say commercial, do you mean S2, the employment lands?
Yes, yeah, the S2 just being surrounded by S5 and S3 and bordering it, and if we're having to go continuous without services going out there later, like we're getting farther and farther away without transit, and I don't see a plan for S2 to grow with S3 and S5, especially because our long-term plan stated that one of the main goals was to have access to the 402. And now we have to take 3 different roads to get to the 402, and we're going farther away from the 402 access points. So all the points that we're supposed to be following, I can't see how S2 is the best property, given everything in the entire municipality that fits those. And right now I'm not talking about other areas, I'm just talking about Strathroy. But with that, I can't see how S2 is the best fit. I don't.
Our planning justification report will kind of explain our thinking on this, but again, I appreciate the comment.
Just for Madam Councillor Pelkman, I have a question for housekeeping matter. You had indicated in Councillor Pelkman's that if we wanted to change lands, we'd have to go through here. This may be to the clerk. If we want to make a change, do we need a notice of, not a notice of motion to make a change? We want to give direction to the people this evening to do something outside of what they recommended. Do you feel we need a motion to do so, or a vote of council? I think that would help you, correct? I'm going to ask Mr. Williams maybe too, if there was a change this evening, or do you want that to happen at the next meeting?
That would be preferred this evening, if we could understand what that would be, and that having that vote of council would be helpful to provide that direction tonight.
Otherwise, all we're doing tonight is talking. So if somebody wants to make a direction, you want it done by a motion. Okay,
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, Councillor Pelkman.
Yes, thank you. Kind of already answered my question that I was going to follow up on Greg, so I'll let that drop. But if you need a motion, then I would suggest that we, is it 170 Carroll Street West? That's the first one on site. So that we switch 170 Carroll Street West with S6. I don't know what property that address that is, but no, that's off Metcalf.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's purely on the distance from the commercial areas and schools, and S6 is a long ways away from anything unless you want to go walk to the cemetery.
You may get a ride there someday.
So that's a motion.
Do you have anybody to second it?
I'll second it, but
Yep,
can
go
I
ahead.
also get clarification on the
Sure.
map as
Yep.
to what we're doing? Because every time I blow my map up, all I get is pixelated nonsense. So,
Going up behind you, can you see?
yeah, like, can we bring it up and then Steve can tell us exactly what he's doing? I'll still second it. It's good conversation.
So you can see S6 there is where the new pumping station is, just on the other side of Trout Creek, sort of kitty corner to the cemetery.
Right.
That's the lands I'm suggesting be removed.
We remove S6.
S6.
Remove that. And are you replacing it with
And I would
something?
replace it with 170 Carroll Street West, which is, if you want to talk old school, 10th concession just across the creek at the end of Park Street.
On the map.
Now, is that the large piece of land that follows the red?
Yes. So it is across the road from S4.
across the road from S4.
Used to be called Site 1.
Trying to point.
Is there a different map you can use or not?
I just want to make sure it's the same piece of land that I'm thinking of. If you point at the map, if you put your finger on the S of Walker's Road, yeah, now just kind of go
Where do you want to go?
to the left and up a little bit. Okay, right in that.
Right there.
Is it that piece? Now,
Yes, it is.
follow that red line where it goes,
Right in
no.
here.
Okay, what about, I'm going to come up if you don't mind.
Your worship.
I think,
Steve, it's called Site 1.
This is not in our presentation.
is there not one segment in here that was looked at once, and then, I can't remember if there was a segment over here? Is this what you're looking at, this piece?
No,
You're looking
that
at
piece right
this
there,
piece?
right there.
Relation to S4?
Yeah. It's across the,
So you're looking in here?
yes. So if you were coming out the end, if you went past Trout Haven
Yeah.
and you come across to the end of Park Street, that's
Right.
70 Carroll across the road.
Okay, okay. It's too bad we didn't have a bigger map that we could see roads. I don't know, can you bring up a map of,
It's a Google map.
like a Google Maps? Yeah.
I don't know the net transfer is a
Jake,
big.
are you getting that? Well, he's doing it. Are there any other questions or comments on, go ahead, Councilor Derbyshire. And then while he's getting a map, you can ask your question.
Thank you. So I'm in the, I think it's the third thing here where it gives the evaluation with the dots. So the growing together, it's the second thing on there, the 206 Strathroy-Caradoc soil evaluation report, where it has the dots with the criteria. What I was wondering is, with this criteria, I see the headings where infrastructure, which I think is self-explanatory, it's either there or has the ability to get there. The connectivity is it within the settlement thing? Then we move to environment. What does that category represent? The agriculture and the growth. Like what are we looking for to fill out the circles in those three categories, and how are they made up?
Councillor, thanks for the question. So in terms of environment, that's really looking at the natural heritage system. So that's environmental features as shown on this map, but also of course in the official plan, both the presence of those features, but also the significance of those features. In terms of agriculture, it's looking at criteria on soil capability, as well as proximity to agricultural operations through MDS, and that'll be all finalized as well as was noted through the planning justification report. And in terms of growth, it was really looking at the ability for that portion, that parcel of land or that request, that landowner request, to achieve objectives, right? Are there, is it an irregular shape that would be really difficult to access without bringing in another portion of land, or does it help us actually achieve the objectives that for growth? And I would note that this was something that was added to the evaluation report following conversations with council over the past couple of years. And so really this process looked at sort of the overall approach to growth and not necessarily it was more of a holistic analysis of how growth could and should be accommodated through boundary expansion, and less about the merits of each individual landowner request. Those landowner requests were one input into a much broader technical evaluation process, an important input, but one of the inputs into the process.
Just go ahead, Councilor.
I just, as we're looking at adding 170 Carroll Street to this, I see the agricultural part is not filled out. So that's what I was wondering, like why, what makes that then not, I'm going to say not meet the criteria at all. It doesn't partially meet it, it's not filled out. So when we put it in, if we're going to try to put it in, what are we now going against, or what are we pushing rope uphill here for?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, in terms of this motion or the motions that we may receive today, I think we want to receive that direction to explore those lands and perhaps less to remove certain other lands, just so that we can take, if council's interested in looking, say, at this parcel of land, we're happy to receive that direction and look at it sort of holistically to confirm, to Councillor Derbyshire's point, and that would all be rationalized in the report that would come forward.
Okay, so to sum up what you're saying there is, if there was some absolute no that we may not know tonight, to answer Councillor, you may come back and say, for that reason, you just want us to receive it and to give the direction to look at it more closely and come back with recommendations. Does that help with your question, Councillor Derbysshire, a little bit? Then Councillor Pelkman's got his hand up. So.
It does. I'm just was trying to get more of an answer on the criteria. I'm struggling right now to find out what exactly we're doing here. We keep getting a reference to the matrix report that will be coming as to how it is, but it's not here. So
It's further. It's all this stuff.
well, I thought he said we were going to get it when we get it down the line.
Councillor Pelkman, you had a question.
Yeah, sorry, actually, the answer helps me rephrase my motion, because my original intent was not to take anything away. It was because he said if we were going to add something, we had to take something away. So I just wanted to look at that 170 Carroll Street West to see if it could be added. And so I guess the wording would be that we asked WSP to give us an analysis of 170 Carroll Street West to see if it could be added.
Deputy Mayor, you heard his rephrasing. Are you okay with that? I think that's okay. All in favor of that motion? Opposed, if any? Councillor Derbyshiire, we're just voting on his rephrased motion. Just
Sorry, I just was clarifying that what we see here is only on the ones they've approved, not on the ones that they disapproved. Well,
okay, so that motion, you've got your direction there. I'm going to open it up for more questions, but I'm going to ask one that I just was curious about. The commercial lands in Mount Bridges. I see you're doing a like-for-like swap of current commercial to add. I'm going to ask, what are the possibilities of more commercial lands? I think you're going to end up with very quickly the problem we have today in Mount Bridges, which is a lack of commercial land. So I don't know if you need a direction, we want to just comment on commercial lands in Mount Bridges.
Mayor, what I would say is we took our direction from the regional commercial land study that was completed several years ago that didn't provide necessarily a market, demand for more commercial land here at this time. You're correct that we are exploring a like for like to kind of create this idea of a more viable corridor. I think we heard through previous consultation with the community and council that there was desire of creating a bit of a corridor towards the highway and to the common early road, connections to 402. So that was the intent behind that exchange. I get it's something we could explore, but I would say that without opening up the commercial study that was done several years ago, it would be a bit of a perhaps an arbitrary number that we would like.
I just have my follow-up, Greg. So you referenced with residential lands really following the provincial planning policy statement. Is it that rigorous with commercial?
It's all under the umbrella of that community area. So the community area that's shown in yellow on your screen includes residential, commercial, local parkland. So a playground, right? It includes all the roads. So all that land need kind of factors. The county did all of that work to factor in what's taken out there. I would say, Mr. Williams might correct me here, but I think it might also include limited, local commercial, like a convenience store kind of thing, or these sort of less land intensive, smaller scale commercial that kind of supports the community. We're just identifying very specifically in the official plan amendment this desire to have a more fulsome strip of commercial land on Linden.
Councilor Wilsey.
So, being we're talking about M3, that was one of the things I had a couple comments on tonight. I don't agree that M3 is a swap, like-for-like swap with M2, because M3 is serviced and M2 is not. We don't have services out M2. They stop inside of town, and they don't actually go down to where M2 is. So an M3 for M2 swap is not like for like because one's serviced and one's not. The other part with that is that we approved some commercial directly across the road from M3, and one of the criteria that was brought up why that one got approved for the build that we did was because it was directly across from commercial. Now we'll be building a commercial restaurant directly across in the middle of a subdivision if we change M3 over. So with that, then we will have a commercial area that's not designed to be in a neighborhood, surrounded by neighborhoods if we go forward with this. With all those in mind, I'd like to make a motion that we maintain M3 as commercial so that we can not have the island of that one single one that's already under construction that should be opening this fall. So I'm gonna just make a motion that, just to cut out the extra, that we leave M3 as commercial.
And I'll second that because I agree with Councillor Wilsey.
Mayor, could I just make a
Yeah.
brief comment? Yeah, again, happy to receive that direction. In terms of, I think there's a bit of history to this site that we've gleaned through this process around the challenges around developing it, hence why it hasn't happened as of yet. I think there were a number of like access and site concerns with this property. Again, that doesn't say it'll never get developed, but that was one of the inputs that we received through this process, I think through previous staff, and something that may be better addressed as well through Glendon. Again, happy to take away the direction, but just wanted to provide that additional context.
As comments with that, I've spoken to a number of developers who are interested in developing this site into commercial. The roadblock that they always have is that the current owner doesn't want to sell it as partial, he only want to sell it as whole, and they'd make more money doing it as houses. So, and as soon as this study came up where there was a chance to move it to houses, the developer wasn't interested in selling it for commercial anymore. So I believe because it's been on the study has been one of the reasons there hasn't been interest. If this goes away and it stays commercial, we will actually have contiguous commercial with inside Mount Bridges, even though it's in a secondary area. And with all the extra traffic and things that are going to be coming as this part develops, I don't want to have no commercial in this part of Mount Bridges. So I'll leave my motion there.
Yeah. Any other comment on this motion? Councillor Kaufman.
Just maybe in the wording. So I tried to make my wording more ambiguous because we're not actually directing them to do anything. We're directing them to come back with us with more information. And so I'm just wondering what the actual wording is of the motion and if we need to alter it slightly.
Did you want to repeat your, I understand Councillor
My
Kaufman.
motion was to leave M3 as it's currently zoned. We don't want to change it to residential. It needs to be the way it is because we have other approvals that we've put through that were based on this zoning. M3 just to remain as is, be removed from this.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed, if any, motion carries. Any other comments, Mayor, members of council? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So I jump back up to Strathroy for a moment. So S5 is a piece of land, and correct me if I'm wrong, again, the map doesn't allow me to zoom in, but to the south it's bordered by Glengyle, or the 10th concession, since it changes names a number of times. McAvoy to the east, the current boundary to the west, and it would basically be Metcalf Street or Hickory Drive to the north. That's right, eh? So that's a really big piece of land to go residential, and there's no services around there really until you get down into the core. You get the Walmart, Canadian Tire, commercial plaza, but that's well halfway into Strathroy proper by that point in time. So that one surprises me and it's not up on the map, but I was getting the mayor, if you zoom your map out a little bit, I was having the mayor use his finger on the map there showing an area, just keep zooming out, I want to go to the other edge of town. There we go, keep a little bit more, right there, that's good. So was there not a piece of land we looked at, it seems that you've excluded it, that would be north of the R and the S of Walker's Road that would continue the red boundary line of Strathroy to the west, and then it would cut back up in towards the creek? Why, like, there's a piece of land that with all of the natural heritage in and around there would be ideal where people would want to live. And it's within, like, you're getting closer to walking distance to commercial, to the school, the playgrounds. Yeah, right. If you bring your little hand, just bring it down and over to the left a touch. Yeah, right there. That's a parcel of land I see with the other gray boundary lines. Is that correct?
So Councillor, where that cursor hand is right now was never part of a scenario that was brought forward. There was another piece of land in the 2024 scenario on the east or north side of Adelaide, and I guess up towards Saxton. I think it was formerly S7. A benefit of this project reset was an opportunity for us to really look hard at some of these lands, and actually that piece of land had a high pressure pipeline running through it that would have, with the setbacks that would have been required from development, would have made it very challenging, basically limited how much would actually have been able to be developed on that property. So there was, in 2024, there was a small portion where that hand is right now, but there was never anything on the other, because of how much land we needed 2 years ago, there was never, the decision was made not to cross the creek, but given the fact that the county land numbers were so much greater, we had the need and opportunity to re-look at that. So really this is a reassessment of things.
If I may, thank you, and yet, I distinctly remember being in conversations with people about this other piece of land that I was talking about. So I'm confused, because the S5 land doesn't make sense to me that we would be putting a subdivision out there unless there's a future commercial site that people would access. We're going a lot further out than Parkview Drive now. And I've never seen anything that says anybody wanted to develop out in that area. Everything was down more to where the hand is, S4, that type of stuff. So I'm just not in favor of S5 unless there's a bigger plan that I'm not aware of, I guess.
Okay. Councillor Peltman has a comment.
Yeah, I guess maybe since I live in that area, I can help the deputy mayor a little bit.
Yes.
So there is services out to Willow Tree Golf Course. That's where the service is at, which is right at the corner of the S5 property. And that property, from a gravity perspective, the water would flow from Calvert to Metcalfe. So you'd have a downhill gravity feed to the highway for sewage. I think that would be correct if, yeah.
So you're saying for storm sewers?
Storm sewers and sewer. And the sewer capacity and the water come right to the front corner of that property at Willow Tree. As well as you would probably have the ability to tie in through Parkview, because there are a number of places there where there's stormwater management ponds and stuff that could probably feed services through.
And so, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I do agree with it, and yet it seems that we're making a community out in there that is not it's not a walkable community back into what currently exists. And that concerns me. You know, how are these people going to get service? Unless these are all going to be single-family homes with like 2-car garages on them, and people are driving back in to downtown Strathroy or you know, wherever they're going to go to get to. I thought we would try to do more with a walking community, if I can use that term. So that's my concern with S5. It's a huge piece of land, and it just surprises me. I think it'd be better served in the area where I was looking previously.
Mr. Mayor, could I add something? Yes. To the councillor, so in the official plan amendment, the draft that's in front of you today, there's something called a future neighborhoods overlay that we've set up. And this is, so it's in the case of this S5, it's designated neighborhoods. And in the official plan amendment, it actually has like a dotted hatching over the property. That signifies some additional policies that we've created for all of the new neighborhood lands or these community lands that are being brought in to require basically what you just said, that further study around making sure there's a mix of housing, that it's not just, you know, single detached house with a 2-car garage, that we're achieving that mix of housing, that development is phased and staged in an appropriate manner such that servicing can actually be provided, that parkland is allocated in an appropriate way. And so all that to say is there's a lot more planning work at a site level that would need to happen on any of these lands before development actually takes place, including a site-specific development application. And so I think one of the messages that's important to underscore around a boundary expansion is that we're sort of redrawing the line. We might shade it in a little bit, but the real color comes after this process through planning applications and through municipal initiatives that would further refine the allocation of land uses on these expansion lands.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Wilsey, then I'm going to open it up to the public.
Yeah, just a couple on Mount Bridges. When we first started this study, Parkhouse Drive was not a county road, and we had not started the upgrade of infrastructure down Parkhouse from Adelaide down to Rougham. So with that being said, there's 2 developments that are being proposed that would abut Parkhouse. One of them is, I think it's only a couple hundred feet away from where services end, and abuts the railroad tracks, and it's got a longer extension for the future and towards the highway. And the other one is beside M5 that would just square out the settlement boundary. I would like those 2 to be reconsidered. I think they make more sense from a servicing capacity, and then also just looking at where services are right now and how easily they can be serviced. I think those 2 should be included. I'd like to make a motion that we look at those 2 properties.
You just asked for a review, correct, Greg?
Yeah, just for a review on those ones.
And a second. Councillor Derbyshire, any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor of that motion? Seeing none. Are there any other comments by council? If not, sorry, councillor, then I'll open up.
I know there were a number of small parcels that were considered housekeeping, and I know that we've had an application from the property owner that's basically beside the little church there, just if you come over the tracks. And just wondering if we could wrap that piece in without adding to anything, because the reality is for what they asked to do, I think you're adding 2 or 3 homes, not a whole subdivision. And that piece of property is never going to be farmed for the way it's developed already. So I'm just curious if we can make that a housekeeping item, or is that not a possibility? So that would be the Pern property.
It's just to the north of Falcon Bridge.
It's a 4-hectare parcel.
Pardon me?
I was just
Yeah, you want to make a
for
motion?
1
I'll
sec.
second it, Councillor. We're gonna look at it.
Yeah, I'll bring a motion to see if we can fit that in without altering the
I'll second. Any other comments, concerns? Okay, all in favor of the motion? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Okay. I'm now going to open up to members of the public. Just if you want to make comments to council, I think most of the questions, but just I'm going to ask you to identify yourself, come up to the microphone. I'm pretty lenient with the time. I give 5 minutes, but that's, go ahead and make comments.
Mr. Mayor, just a clarification.
Yes.
After we hear the public comments, is council still able to make motions if we want to add anything based on the public comments we hear? Or is this, are we done the motion
No,
portion?
that makes sense to me. Yep. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm not sure what to do with my comments because they've been talked about a lot already tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Ken Peters. I'm the owner of LJJK Farms, Inc., which is the owner of 170 Carroll Street West. Just to clarify, it's 100 and, sorry, as far as it's 68 hectares right now. Part of it, about 8 hectares of that property is already within the urban boundary, the woodlands along Carroll Street there. Yeah, I've been gratified to see that you've already had a motion that you want to look at it more closely. As Councillor Derbyshire mentioned, I think one of the reasons that it wasn't looked at more closely is because of that criteria there. It says that it doesn't meet the agriculture criteria, which really surprised me. Because there's only 2 things that they look at as far as I can see when you look at that evaluation report when it comes to agriculture. And one is the soil type, and they say the soil type is the same everywhere in the study area. And the other is the MDS calculations. And I know when I did my own MDS calculations a few years ago, I thought we were fine there, and I haven't heard anything contrary to that. So when I asked at the open house about, why, so I think the agriculture thing is a mistake, but still, when I saw it there, I thought, well, that must be the reason it's not being included. But when I asked at the open house, is that the reason, I was told, no, that wasn't it. It was to do with infrastructure, and we just can't put everything into it. Can't put everything into the settlement area. So I think that because of that agriculture issue, that's why I think maybe didn't get as much investigation or didn't get the approval. I'm not sure. I haven't been told why. I realize you can't put everything that's in the study area and improve it all. But there are good reasons why Site 1 should be included. First, Site 1 is contiguous to the present settlement area all along its eastern boundary and most of its northern boundary. And about 8 hectares, as I said, of woodland on Site 1 are already within the settlement area. Second, when it comes to infrastructure, the sewer and water services are already there along the frontage on Carroll Street. No new trunk line would be required, saving money for the municipality. Also, the provincial policy statement directs that the use of existing infrastructure services should be optimized before new ones are considered. And third, Site 1 is within walking distance of both Mary Wright School and St. Vincent de Paul School, and only about 1 kilometer away from all the recreational facilities at the fairgrounds. It's about 1 kilometer away from the commercial corridor on Caradoc Street, closer than any of the proposed sites. The town's master trail plan includes a new proposed trail on Site 1 along Trout Creek, and there are already some existing trails in the woodland. Site 1 also gives access to the creekside soccer fields, thanks to a bridge at the rear of the property that crosses the creek. All in all, thanks to its location, Site 1 would do a superior job of encouraging an active, healthier, walkable lifestyle. At the open house, the consultant mentioned that as much as possible, they tried to include whole parcels. Site 1 is a large parcel, and I think maybe that's one thing that's been working against me here. And as much as I think it should be included in its entirety, I don't think it has to be all or nothing. If council thinks that the site is too large to all be included, one option would be to leave out the field in the southwest corner of the site. And one argument for doing that would be that the land in that field is quite a bit better than the rest of the land. It just grows better crops every year. And that would take about 20 hectares off it. So instead of having about 55 developable acres, then you're down to about 35. And these are just rough guesstimates, but depending on all the setbacks and everything. And as a closing, so in other words, what Councillor Palpin mentioned earlier about switching it for 6, if you wanted to put all of site one in, you'd have to do more than that. You'd also have to look probably at taking some of the S5 areas out, and if you want to put all of site one in. So as a closing comment, I acknowledge that site one lags behind some of the other sites when it comes to proximity to Highway 402. But I would ask council to consider the merit of being able to get out of town as quickly as possible versus the benefit of being closer and having better access to so many of the things that make Strathroy such a great place to live. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to address council? Okay. Just ask you to introduce yourself, okay?
Hello, my name's Paul Burke-Morno. My wife, I'll keep going. My wife and I own and operate a turkey and cash crop farm just to the east of Mount Bridges. Now that the boundary expansion process is nearing completion with an expected decision in early July, my comments again are based solely on the Mount Bridges boundary expansion. On the Strathroy-Caradoc website, there is a revised technical evaluation report dated June 2026. Is a high-level, lengthy urban evaluation of lands being evaluated. In this report, it does dedicate a half a page of the approximately 50-page report to agriculture. In this half a page, it does indicate that a desktop survey was completed on specialty crop operations were evaluated, and MDS was completed on all livestock farms within 1.5 kilometers of the town boundary and plotted to determine potential MDS constraints. At this end of the agricultural, and this is the end of the agricultural report. No maps, no details. Since the desktop survey would not pick up our farming operation details without speaking to us, I'm going to provide this room a high-level summary of our farm operation that is a specialty and livestock operation. I've been asked to follow the process, and my questions will be answered. It's been 2+ years now in this process that has been going on. I've spoken to several people involved, and they indicated they will get back to me. This has never happened. So my intention here is to tell you how and where I need the proposed boundary plan amended. So our farm is directly, the way that map is brought up, our house is under the M and the barns are just to the east of the M. So our farm is on food safety certified. It is also flock care certified. It is breeder certified, and it is Canadian Food Inspection Agency certified. The certifications require strict established procedures, procedural processes, and continuous audits to ensure the farm's operating and doing everything it can to mitigate food safety and flock care risks. As part of this process, we complete 2 self-audits per year and 5 external audits per year on this farm. The poults that we place in the barn are of extremely limited supply and come from a purebred hatchery out of Nebraska. As I stated earlier, we follow strict procedures on the farm to mitigate food safety and flock care risks. Now, what are the off-farm risks? So off-farm risks for us right now are around noise, avian flu, and activities close to and within the MDS. So noise, our biggest issue here is fireworks. We have modified the barn ventilation systems to include dark outs to reduce the effects of the light show from entering the barn. When the date and time and location of fireworks is known, we adjust the sleep cycle of the birds that day and background noise inside the barn to muzzle the large bangs from fireworks. If these 2 changes are unable to mask the fireworks inside the barn, we can and have had pileups in the barn from birds getting spooked, which has resulted in mortality and/or damaged birds that later had to be euthanized. We have found these 2 changes for noise dampening in the barns has worked when the fireworks are at Lions Park as scheduled every 3 years. but are not enough to prevent flock issues when they have fireworks in the Woods Edge subdivision. So with this proposed boundary expansion, moving closer to our operation, I need Woods Edge as well as M1, M2, M3, and M6 to be designated as noise-free. It may be worthwhile to have WSP talk to other livestock operations, determine how the noise is affecting their operation, and have the noise restrictions even adjusted further. Avian flu. The best control for avian flu, both on and off the farm, is to have a design that does not attract ducks and geese to the area. For the land in M2, we worked with Strathroy-Caradoc and the planner to design and install a water management plan that will completely drain out in 3 to 5 days after a significant rainfall. With these design changes of the storm management plan, it does not create a pond that attracts ducks and geese. With the proposed boundary expansion moving closer to our operation, I need all stormwater management plans for M1, M3, M6 to be designed that it drains out completely as demonstrated in M2. It may be worthwhile to have WSP talk to other livestock operations to see how they're, if they want to have 100% drainage stormwater management plan as well. Activities close to and within the MDS. MDS is used to minimize the potential impacts and conflicts between non-farm and farm uses. The issue here is, what is the MDS for our farm? In the revised technical evaluation that was done, dated in June of 2026, on the half page, the report indicates that they used publication 853 from the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Foods and Rural Affairs to calculate MDS and plotted the data on a boundary map that was not included in the report. I had this calculation run by a consultant, and they came up with a distance of 463 meters setback from my barns. The issue here is that about a year ago, publication 853 was revised to include guideline number 12 that states MDS1 setbacks may be reduced if guideline conditions are met. And since the report from WSP is incomplete, I do not know what they calculated and considered in the report. The report also indicates that parcel M1 should be considered for community infrastructure like arena, community center, etc. The Strathroy official plan dated in July 2022, 4.2 states the policies of agriculture designation are intended to ensure continuation of farming as a predominant use of the area, freeing its ability to function and expand with accordance to sound farm management techniques, conservation practices, and without constraints imposed by conflicting land uses. While land uses and additional farming are permitted under certain circumstances, they are strictly controlled in terms of their type, scale, location, as to not to be detrimental to farming. If I lose any one of my certifications, it will shut down the livestock portion of my farm. As per 4.2 of the official plan, I would argue that our farm is a specialty operation, and the optional guideline 12 of MDS setback reduction should not be applied to our operation, as the potential non-agricultural land uses will be detrimental to our operation, that only MDS1 is applied. 3 reasons. I need to keep people, events, and noise as far as possible from the barns to ensure compliance for our certifications. Poults used on the farm are extremely limited in supply and come from a hatchery in Nebraska. The breeder flock that is raised on our farm is raised for Cuddy Farms. As per Cuddy Farms general manager, and I quote, "Burke-Martel farm operation is a critical component of the overall poultry business model at Cuddy Farms. Their role directly supports operational efficiency, production consistency, and financial stability across the organization." So with this boundary expansion, I need all land within the MDS1 as calculated in 853 to be excluded from the proposed boundary expansion. That will take out a couple of hectares out of M1, just to make it clear. And remain as
Maybe
it's.
one more minute, Paul?
Yeah, I'm just about done.
All right,
It's currently zoned. No new parks, roads, or buildings within the MDS. Meaning A1 farmland is inside the MDS is farm, not a park, not a road. And I got a little bit more, but I'll quit there, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the gallery wishes to speak?
I do have a copy of my.
You will get it from me later, and we'll give it to the clerk, and she can distribute it, okay?
Thank you.
On that one there, does a motion need to be made to
Why don't we let
review?
everybody at the very end, we'll do it, okay?
I just didn't want to forget about it
Don't forget about it.
if needed me.
Okay.
Hello, everybody, council, mayor. My name's Jerry Banowski. I live on Falcon Bridge Drive. We are having two developments on either side of us proposed, or one has already been accepted, and now another one, M1, is being proposed. And we have some concerns we would like you guys to please look into. Number one, the water holding pond is not too far from, proposed water holding pond is not too far from our pond. And we're worried, and the water moves towards our place, and we're worried about the polluted, any pollution that might come into that pond. We're also looking at how much ditch erosion we'll get over time, because with the amount of water that's going to be coming off, actually both proposed new housing areas. We don't, and the other thing is our land, we don't want it to be used as a park. Right now, we're already having people walking onto our property, and we'd like at least have some kind of fencing or some kind of barriers to let us to continue farming the way we've been. That's about it. Just quick. Yeah? Yeah, okay. Oh, this is my son, Mark. He's taking over the farm, so.
I would ask, though, if we could put some sort of filter barriers in the holding pond itself, that the drainage can't, or something to filter it out, that it doesn't go into our groundwater and contaminate our pond that way. I know flow-wise, the pond's going just past our pond, but there could still be some contamination through the groundwater into our pond. So if we could put some sort of liner or filter through it, that we could actually prevent some of that from happening. M4 is also coming down directly into our pond. I want to know what council's thoughts are on making the water, drinking water safe. And I think that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? Down there.
Hello there. I know it's already 10 after 6, so I'll try to make this quick. My name's Anthony Slegers. My family owns the 751 Thomas Street property. That one right there. We did send a letter to staff to be forwarded to council earlier today. I'm not sure if anybody's had a chance to read that yet, but I would encourage everybody to read that thoroughly. I won't read it all word for word right now, but I'll just talk about a few main points on there. We are concerned that the evaluation criteria used to evaluate all the farms is not being evenly distributed across all the farms. So for example, I know Ken Peters back here also had this concern. We were given a partial score on agriculture, even though our entire farm was class 3 agriculture. Then you have other farms that were included in the settlement area expansion or recommendation here that were given full scores on agriculture, even though M1, which we've heard is close, or has the MDS concern with the turkey barn, and M4, which actually has a corner of the property that has class 1 soil. So they were both given full scores on agriculture when we were given a partial score. So I'm just a little confused on how these scores were given. Another one is the environmental category that was given. Again, we were given a partial score. I do realize we have about 6 acres of heritage protected land, and so a partial score would be justified. But another property that was given a full score has over 9 acres of protected land, including wetlands, but they were given a full score on the environmental side. So again, I'm seeing a little bit of a disconnect between the evaluation criteria being applied evenly across all the farms. We were actually given full scores on growth and connectivity, which is good to see. Our farm actually travels, or it has a linear foot of about 1 kilometer, all the way from the railroad tracks to Park House, all the way up against town. And as the deputy mayor pointed out, walkability is obviously an issue, and we are actually the closest option to schools, to downtown, to most of Mount Bridges actually. The one area that I see that we did get partial scores on was the infrastructure part. So I see that every single option in Mount Bridges that was recommended is either on the sewer line or is a farm that is part of a plan to be on the sewer line. Again, I see in Strathroy that wasn't really followed, but they seem to use that rule in Mount Bridges. I would just make the argument that the corner of our property is only 150 meters from the sewer line, and it flows downhill, so you have your gravity fed. I would argue that the cost of the 150 meters of sewer, which the developer we're partnered with has actually offered to front end, by the way, that upfront cost is kind of offset by the long-term maintenance cost of a pumping station on some of the other properties that were considered. Our stormwater management actually is very economically feasible. There's 3 different drains on our farm, and from what I've been told, it is probably the most economically feasible stormwater management option out of all their properties. So basically, what I'm saying is, or to summarize, is that I think if we were given an even evaluation on all the criteria, we would actually have 4 out of 5 full scores across their evaluation matrix, which no other property actually has. And then the score that is partial, which is the infrastructure part, we're only 150 meters off the sewer line. We have water. The water comes down Thomas Street, Glover, I believe, and down Park House. The only downfall is the 150 meters of sewer line that needs to be built, which again was offered to be front-ended. So I guess I'm just asking that, which actually I was happy to see that there was a motion today to reevaluate the property, which I'm very pleased to see. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what WSB or WSB can come up with. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Gentleman right there.
Good evening. My name is Brad Thompson. I live on Lockwood Crescent, which is just north of M5 in Mount Bridges. I have a couple of comments about the process. I haven't lived in this area long, just 3.5 years, but this whole boundary expansion process seems backwards. We have consultants that are recommending to council what to do with our land. We don't even know what we want to do with Mount Bridges at this point. But you're going to take little bits, pockets, here M5, M6, M1, and just expand like this, like a polka dot thing. Meanwhile, when you look at the different ones that have been recommended, I did speak to a couple of people at the open house, and I didn't get very good answers, but specific to M5, which was previously Site 20, if you go back to the previous matrix, Site 20 is listed as 8525 Park House Drive. That's incorrect. 8525 Park House is Site 4. And you can check that, WSP, if you like to. It was also said there was a previous plan on M5. The only plan that I can find, and I was shown this at the open house, is a one water pipe that Sifton put together. In there, I guess they did something to do with water from Mount Bridges and to do with expanding down Adelaide Street. but there's no actual plan that's ever been on M5. It's also the only piece that the owners did not ask to be in the boundary plan review. So I find it very strange, and Mr. Slagers, who was just here, I had looked at that property, and it seems, which is approximately the same size as M5, and it seems the perfect piece of land for that 20 hectares. The connectivity alone, coming in on Thomas Street Parkhouse with potentially, I know the plan that was put on there, has an access through a road over the train tracks. Whereas M5, the only thing you can ever do is connect to Parkhouse. You cannot get to Lockwood. So from a safety standpoint, you want to put a neighborhood that the kids have to, anywhere they want to go in Mount Bridges, they have to cross Parkhouse. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The other thing is I did try and ask town staff about the capacities of the sewer pipe and the water main that are being installed on Parkhouse now. For some reason, nobody seems to know what that is. But you can look at me. Walter didn't return my call. Then I was returned another call and he said, well, I don't know if we can look that up. So that was the other day. I didn't have time to continue. So that's what the look was for. If we're trying to create a town and we're going to build a new arena potentially on Glendon, M5 is about as far away as you could get. So we want kids, how are they going to walk there? You're going to take them on the two of the three busiest roads, which would be Parkhouse and Adelaide. We've got the new subdivisions coming in on the other side of Parkhouse. The traffic that's going to go up there is going to be enormous. Now, if M3 was left as residential, again, you're adding more and more cars onto Parkhouse Drive. And it may be taken care of by the county now, but it seems, it just doesn't make sense. There's also no trail system that will connect to M5, but there is trail systems that will connect to the Thomas Street, the Slagers property. And it seemed as though the consensus has been the expansion of Mount Bridges should continue along Glendon Drive. So that's really where we should be looking at doing this. Or let council decide how we're going to expand Mount Bridges, kick the consultants out, take the whole boundary and just make it all part of the town. And let council decide how we move forward, as opposed to people. Even with Site 20, when you look at it, somebody else had mentioned about the number of people involved in putting these sites forward. M5 is 1/3 of Site 20, which is, one is the owners of M5, which I don't think are here tonight. It's also Cirrus Developments owns one piece of Site 20, and another family owns the piece that goes to Adelaide Drive. But, so, once again, the owners did not request to be in the boundary review, so why is this piece of land even being considered? Other people are here tonight. They want their land considered. And they have very good arguments for it. So that's basically what I have to say. Thank you very much for your time. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Any other comments? Yeah, one there.
Good evening, my name is Matthew Cattell, and I own a piece of property on Scotchmere Drive, just to the east of Caradoc North Public School. My comments don't really pertain to the expansion of the boundaries, but as to the update of the official plan itself. That area kind of acts as a residential cluster right now, and currently on my property there's a big old barn that's fairly useless, surrounded by agricultural land to the south. And I've submitted a request, or a letter I should say, through my legal counsel today that I hope council considers to have that area actually designated as a hamlet in the interest of removing the old barn and replacing it with residential lots. And my comment is simply, I hope that letter is considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from members of the public? Okay, Councillor Derbyshire, you'd asked about asking questions. If you have one, we'll open up the council.
Excuse me, are you going to online comments?
Oh, sorry, online comments. I didn't see something. Apologize for that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, my apologies for that,
Speak
Pierre.
to the members of council. My name is Pierre Chauvin, partner and a planner from MHPC Planning out of Kitchener. And I'm here on behalf of Ms. Patricia, or Patty Pern. I thank the councillor for bringing the motion forward with respect to her property. That's what we're here. I'm here this evening. Just going to share my screen, if you may, with just the location of the property. You can just see that. Just let me know if you can't see it. It's identified in blue on this map. It's a municipal address 8524 Falcon Bridge Drive in Mount Bridges. It's immediately east of what is identified as M4, and it was identified as property number 11 in the evaluation report. I too have concerns with the evaluation and the scoring, and we have provided a detailed response to Mr. DeRitter with respect to that, and won't just go into detail with respect to our comments, but bottom line is we're here to request that our client's lands be added or considered to be added to the settlement boundary. There's a lot of infrastructure planned, as you know, in this portion of the community that will accommodate these lands, no different than M4. In terms of connectivity, it's again no different than M4 in terms of its abutting Falcon Ridge, frontage on Adelaide, as well as an unopened road allowance that would provide another alternative for access to the lands. From an agricultural perspective, primarily, it is severely undersized. It's only 4.4 hectares. So from an agricultural perspective, it's undersized in that regard, and well set back and buffered by existing natural heritage features, etc. So I think from all the other properties from an agricultural perspective, I'm quite surprised that these lands only partially got a score of satisfying the criteria. And obviously the growth, for some reason did not get a score at all, not meeting the criteria. I think frankly all the parcels that were identified should meet them 100% because they are intended to meet your growth needs. So this parcel will be no different in that regard in terms of providing a mix and range of housing for your projected needs. So for those and a number of other reasons enumerated in our letter, we ask that you can seriously consider adding our clients' lands to the settlement boundary of Mount Bridges. Happy to answer any questions, and I'd like to again acknowledge the motion that was put on, that was passed earlier to consider these lands. So thank you for the opportunity.
I don't see anybody else online. Is there anybody else? Does anyone else online wish to comment? Once, twice, done. Okay, anyone else in the gallery? With that, let's turn it over to Council. Were you, Councilor Derbyshire, you had something you wanted to speak to?
Thank you. So I was just going to ask if obviously we've had requests from the people that stood up asking to either have their farm thing reviewed or like I know with Mr. Burke Mortel, he was kind of asking for a review of the 1,000 feet for lack, the minimum setback distance and how that applied and kind of what exactly he had asked. I didn't write it down here. That's would have been easier to make the motion right after. So I guess I would just ask that the review that he is requesting of the documentation that he has be done and considered while moving forward.
You seconding that, Councilor Deputy?
Please, thank you.
Yep. Any comments or questions? We will vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion? Go ahead. You had something with, so that motion carried. Yep.
Oh, I get one more.
Yeah, one more. Sorry, but if you want to speak there first, Councilor, then we'll go to you. Go ahead. Just here for clarity.
Yeah, just to maybe add some clarity to this, that specific motion. I'm happy to take away that direction. The project team has committed to meeting directly with that property owner, with our agricultural specialist in the coming weeks. that meeting is being booked and scheduled. So it's certainly on our radar. So I just want to provide that additional context.
Go ahead, your second, Councilor Derbyshire, then we'll go to the.
You want to speak on that again, or no?
No, I want to speak on a different one.
Okay, can I make a motion that the hamlet that was brought forward be reviewed as part of the I'm going to call it infill or the official plan amendment, where the Caradoc North, which Mr. Cadell brought forward. Do you know what I mean, Tim?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Williams.
So, to the councillor, what I would say there is the property Scotchmere that was brought forward in Saxton.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I would say there is that area is not part of a designated hamlet or any other element of the county official plan. It is part of a rural area, and so through this process. Again, I would defer to Mr. Williams, but the county would actually need to lead with looking at their settlement area structure to add that as a hamlet. So the hamlets that are designated in the official plan come straight from the county official plan. So we can take the direction and provide some commentary on it, but I can't see us getting to a point through this process of recommending a new hamlet or it would effectively be creating a new settlement.
Before we begin, we need a seconder on the motion. Do you have a seconder on the motion? Councilor Wilson, I just need to have a second motion on the floor. Did you want to comment?
Yes, I just on hamlets, I guess I was going to ask a little bit more for details on that, because we have a number of different ones within the municipality. We've got Park House and Troops, which has no water, but we're approving new residential lots. I think we built like 10 in the last 2 years. And it's just growing, and it's right out near the highway. But it's got no water. We've got Campbellville and Delaware West, which I think are already declared hamlets. But they have water, but they don't have sewer. I'm not sure exactly where Melbourne is located, but we have a bunch of these little places that are kind of scattered around it, and we've got lots of places where there's like 6 or 8 houses put together in the country. I think where we talk about saving farmland, and people, like, we've had lots of comments where people near end of life want to be out in the country as well, but people also want to live out in the country, and right now we're not even giving those opportunities, even when there is like 6 or 8 houses put together, and we're kind of doing it in spots, even if they're not declared a hamlet. So if it's not through this process, I guess we'd have to talk to county about declaring more hamlets, or looking at something where it's next to a different house, or how do we go about looking at this one, or even Park House and Troops is a good one as well, because that borders some of the proposed subdivision expansions, and it's right near the highway. It's where we want to grow. It's where we want commercial. It's where lots of things go by our plans, but we can't do anything because we're just building houses in the middle of the country, which we're not supposed to be able to do. So I guess I just don't know how that all comes together for declaring a hamlet or directing growth.
Do you want to comment on from the county, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Or from the official plans?
I'll speak more generally, whether my hat is a county or local, I'm not sure. But I think there are multiple things that you've noted. We've got history here with a Caradoc official plan that had a number of locations that were designated rural residential, and that Troops and Park House area is one of those examples. There's some lands just outside of Mount Bridges that have that same designation. And so these legacy properties have taken a while to develop as they moved forward. The thing is, those rural residential uses are no longer supported by the PPS, but they're, as I say, legacy situations. So to take away those designations at this point is a very difficult thing to do, given that there are houses in those areas. That's Park House and Troops. Campbellville is specifically listed. Delaware West is specifically listed as a hamlet areas in the county official plan, and Melbourne is listed both as a hamlet and a community area, and that was done by the province. So I won't get into what I think of that, but that's just the way that it is. It's between two municipalities. Melbourne has water, but is on septic systems, and that's a similar situation as Campbellville and West, Delaware West. I think if you're working on a motion that relates to this, it might be, maybe is a situation where you're asking us to provide comments on how that may come to be, or if this process isn't the process, explain what the process is, and we can explore it in the coming weeks with the county staff as well, and if that means that it's kind of a sub piece of the work that they're doing, but it's something that we get comments from the county on, and we could possibly include it in the report as that. We can be creative as to how it shows up, and you get an answer.
I like that idea. You like that idea, Councilor?
Fair enough.
That's good. Just second motion, and all in favor of the motion. Opposed of any, motion carries. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to the Sluggers property. Many years ago, it would seem that people that sat around these tables prior to us always intended Mount Bridges to grow into the Sluggers property. I've heard about this for well over 40 years, but if you look at the map, both Bruce Street and Thomas Street that extend or would extend into the Sluggers property, they're not cul-de-sacs, they're just stopped right now, kind of in nowhere land, because the intention was always to grow further to the east into what I keep referring to as the Sluggers property. So somehow we need to address that and bring that to a conclusion in our urban boundary. Otherwise, these little dead-end streets just sit there with no turnarounds and little purpose. So with that being said, I would motion that we reevaluate the Sluggers property from that point of view, or in addition to that historical point of view. Thank you.
Someone to second your motion. Councilor Wilsey, any further comment? Seeing none, all in favor. Any more comments from members of the council? Councilor Derbyshire.
Just a question on employment acres. Are we to add more tonight if we want to see employment acres in Mount Bridges? Is that
You can bring a motion if you wish. That's the purpose. If you wish to bring a motion.
I would bring that motion that we add employment acres around the 402 in Mount Bridges. I know it's not going to meet the criteria of the expansion, but I do believe that the 402 obviously is the corridor and the key to moving product. So if we're going to wait until we get there, we might be 100 years before we do that. So I don't know how else to do that. If we put it beside, let's say, M1, M2, somewhere in there, well, obviously we have an agricultural zone, but then we're going to be stopping our residential building. But unless we begin to build some employment acres outside of the Strathroy-Caradoc, which we don't have a whole lot of access to the 402 there anymore, Strathroy-Caradoc itself is going to run out of kind of places to sell that are along the 402. So I don't know how to.
I'm actually in agreement with you. Waiting for the motion.
I'm just trying to figure out how to word it. I don't want to specifically pick properties because I don't know if we can specifically pick properties.
Yeah.
But
I think we got a comment there. Go ahead.
To the councillor, I think it's a really good conversation to have. I think this idea, I know it's something that came up several years ago when we were here talking about employment lands. I think it's a much bigger conversation to have outside of this process in terms of where the most appropriate location is. Again, it's actually not dissimilar to the conversation we just had about hamlets. We take our cues from where the urban boundary, like so again, the county official plan has urban areas, community areas, and hamlets. If there was something that we'd be looking at separate from Mount Bridges, it would almost be kind of, creating that separate area for development. I think it's a good conversation to have. I think there's a lot of factors that play into it. So I think it's something that, much like the Hamlet one, could be a separate process that could happen. It doesn't have to happen in 5 years, it can happen anytime. And I think one of the things that the provincial planning statement provides municipalities flexibility on is the ability to look at boundary expansions outside of the 10-year review or outside of the comprehensive review. So I think it's something, if there was a motion today, I think our response would be to maybe work with county staff and municipal staff to kind of frame where that process would happen. But through this exercise, creating sort of a new cluster or again, I think there's a lot around site selection. I think our economic development colleagues here might be able to speak to that more as well. Certainly of interest to the county, and I know the deputy mayor and I spoke about this at the public open house. There's certainly an active file at the county and interest in this work. But I think we can provide some of that commentary, but I can't see us identifying a new employment cluster in Mount Bridges through this process. We just don't have that employment land study. There's a whole site selection process that would need to happen and a lot of county coordination in that regard.
So just to comment on Mr. Williams, so if a council, even this one or a future one, decide they want to create an industrial park, just way out there, corner of 402 and Glenwood, that can be a separate process, correct? What I'm saying is, Mr. Williams, you'll be familiar with what's happening west of Kitchener, Wilmot Township, where they're trying to take 700 acres for industrial land. That's a separate process. I'm in agreement, we should look at it sometime, but it can in fact happen at any point in time on the will of council. Am I correct?
That is correct. So in this particular case, just the motion can be made that you understand, and it would be separate from what these gentlemen are maybe putting forward, but that we actually start that consideration. And I'm also mindful of the fact that council has seen, and I'm forgetting their names now, the economic development file that came forward, and they looked at a couple of different options for different clusters for where future employment could happen. And we would start with that kind of material and we'd work our way to potentially an official plan amendment.
Okay. Councilor Brandon.
Speaking to that, I wonder if at the county level they could take a look at a series of employment zones contiguous to or close to the 402 access points that in Middlesex, because this sounds like a big project where we're trying to leverage the economic opportunities of the 402 and access to the border, I think. But why not take it at the county level and see if there could be an initiative where this happens at the 402 access points across all of Middlesex County? Maybe there could be some kind of larger vision here that we could tap into, and Mount Bridges would benefit from that. But so might Everett Summit, some of the other communities in Middlesex, because it seems to me this is like almost a regional county kind of idea to try to use the 402 access, and rather than just do it in one spot in Mount Bridges, maybe the county could take a look at how to best do that right across the entire county along the 402 corridor. Thank you.
We just got to check. Was Councilor Derbyshire's motion seconded? I don't. So sorry, I just want to make sure. Do you still want to go forward with the motion, Councilor Derbyshire? Get a seconder before we start.
Yeah, I do think I want to move forward with the concept that we try to get ahead of the game. I can appreciate it being a county initiative, but I think if they do that, then we're going to be on a level playing field with every other exit. I think we should have a look into it ourselves and possibly have a bit of a plan so that we know what we want to do and where we're going. That would be, so I would take your suggestion where you say you look at it through this process and make suggestions moving forward.
It was seconder. You seconded, Councilor Wilsey? All in favor of the motion?
I need to have it read back to me.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Can you say it? Because there was a lot.
Yeah, Councilor Derbyshire, can you reiterate your motion?
So my motion would be that we look into, do you want to add to this? You guys look like you
what may be
Before I
helpful-
go and make a motion and they say, no, we can't do exactly that.
I think what may be helpful is perhaps through the staff report that comes forward, as a project team, we can just put some thoughts together in terms of how a process like that might come together and some recommendation. Ultimately, this would need to be scoped as a project, like in terms of reference put together for how this would come together. And so perhaps it could be something that we provide some commentary on in the staff report, but I suspect, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think there's an opportunity, right, for council to come back with some type of terms of reference for looking at this this process. It's really starting a process, and we're not going to land this through this official plan amendment. Colleague Rob might add something.
Good, Councilor, your motion.
Understand.
You got the floor.
I guess when we were at the public meeting, when we talked about employment acres, you kind of said that they were the ones that weren't really bound by a whole lot of rules. Council kind of got to pick and choose, so that's where I said, fine then, if I want to make a motion, I would say put in 400 acres around the 402 exit at Glendon. Now, whatever that works out to in hectares, you do the conversion, I work at acres, I really have no idea how many hectares. But if then we're making a motion, that's the motion I'd make.
Deputy Mayor wants to chime in.
Can I ask for a friendly amendment that the motion be that staff bring back a report outlining how or which process we would engage with to develop an industrial and/or commercial site in the 402 at Glendon Drive region.
So here's the only thing I'm gonna say. I think once we decide we're putting acres out there, that's where we go next. Develop your plan, do what you want. Just pick the acres. We're just gonna put this many acres and say, here's what we wanna make our industrial thing. And at that point, you can decide your plan and this and that, and if it doesn't work, the next time we'll shrink the acres or move them around. Essentially what we're saying is, here's what we wanna do. It might never come to fruition, but we've made these lands this way. And then from there, we'll control how it moves, what it does. We'll then move on to what you're asking for, a plan, process, where we're going, who wants to come in. Maybe nobody wants to come in. But at this point, I think what I heard at the public meeting was we can pick our employment acres because they're far easier to elaborate on.
Go ahead and comment. Then we're going.
Yeah, and thank you for the comments, Councillor. I would just observe for Council's consideration that similar to how we've informed and based the proposed or recommended settlement area boundary expansion, the PPS, or the provincial planning statement, has very prescriptive criteria that must be satisfied to where those lands are located. Excuse me. So yes, there's an opportunity to project beyond 30 years in terms of identifying what those employment area lands need is. But a key criteria from the PPS, for example, is also contiguous lands adjacent to settlement areas, the ability to service those lands, et cetera, et cetera. So notwithstanding that it's a reasonable consideration to identify other areas within the municipality that may be strategic in the long term for employment areas, it's not something to date that has been thoroughly reviewed from a technical perspective through this process, given that it's been moving forward under the provincial planning statement. So there is some preliminary work, not to speak what that work would look like, but there's some preliminary work that would need to form the basis for any type of future study or process to look at other employment area lands beyond what's been identified to date.
Okay, so do we have a second motion? Okay. You reiterate your Deputy Mayor is trying to give a friendly amendment.
I think he didn't want to accept it, my understanding.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay. So do you need the motion reiterated back? Okay.
I'll just make the motion to put in 200 acres around the Glendon exit. The hell with it.
You agree with the second it? Okay. So I'm just struggling that there's a separate process, right? We're here for the settlement boundary. I'm in agreement it's a good process. Councilor Derbyshire, I'm going to vote against it, not because I don't agree with it, but we're here tonight to look at settlement boundary. Maybe at a future date we could bring a separate report, but this is to me, out of the scope of the settlement boundary, but I agree it's delinquent, so.
On that, rather than putting it in, what if we did the same thing we're doing with Hamlets and they let us know what the process would be to get it in the fastest?
Sure.
Whatever you guys want to do.
And if we do the process, we at least know what to do,
Yeah.
even if we can't do it as part of it.
Yep, okay. Yep.
So just have staff bring a report that tells us the process, which means hire another consultant, go through I don't need a process, I really don't. Just, I'm done with the motion, I'm canceling it.
Okay.
If we can't put her in, I'll either, actually, I'll just leave it stand. If you don't want to second it, that's fine too.
So you have, did you second it, Greg?
I did.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion's defeated. Any other comments from members of council? Go ahead, Greg.
I have two questions. I'll start off first with the friendly amendment that the deputy mayor made. I will make the motion that we bring a report back or include in this report the most expedient process to add employment acres along the 402. But I'm going to expand it a bit, not only to include Glennon, but also Longwoods. We have two exits that, and the Longwoods actually has water right next to it with Delaware West. So it might actually be easier to get water to than the park house. So I'm going to include to all of the other two. I'm going to include three. I'm going to with Hickory Drive as well.
That's all process driven.
So we've all, for all the 402 exits in the municipality, is what I'm going to expand it to. Hopefully I'll get a seconder for that.
Yep, sorry, any comments, concerns? All in favor of that motion? That motion carries. Deputy Mayor.
Just a question. I'm just looking at the motions as they're coming up. Did the motion about the Sluggers property get done? It just didn't, it did. I just didn't see it on there. Thank you.
Any other comments or concerns? Councillor Wilsey.
Just while we're talking about employment lands, I just have a question on M6. I don't recall what the plan was for M6 and Mount Bridges. I didn't know if there was a plan already submitted or what it includes. And my interest in that property comes along with what's more bordering it that's just outside of the settlement boundary. We've got 3 or 4 businesses. We have medical clinic. This would be a great place if we're going to do more commercial or do employment area. It would be right there. Because we do have a factory right across the road that's got trucks coming. And I know they work 24 hours a day, so there's always trucks there. It's not a great spot to build houses right along that. We're going to get complaints about noise. Next to that is a construction company, and then we have a stair company. Then across the road we have a medical center and a vet clinic. Like, it's already a commercial hub that's already kind of started on its own outside of the settlement boundary. So if there's not already something there, I would question whether that is the best place to put more houses, or if we should consider that employment land that would be actually contiguous with the property boundary. But I don't know what plan's already there, so I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm just not familiar with that.
It's a great question, Councillor. I think what I'd say is that, again, existing plans or existing development interests on lands was one input into this process. I'm going to seek nods from down the table. I don't think we've seen anything specific to these properties, but rather, I think, to your point, it is trying to start capturing some of these legacy areas that there is those existing commercial, industrial, supportive uses that it's starting to kind of get towards, where there's, again, the existing investment. Again, much like all the other things, it's something for us to take. We can, if you'd like us to, we can take something away and look at those a little bit further. But again, it's a well-accessed site, bounded by three roads, so a lot of different options. And I think even to some of the concerns that were raised through some of the delegations, but also to your very valid comment about trucks and land use compatibility, that's something that will be dealt with through that future neighborhoods overlay. And that's also something that gets dealt with through the subdivision process, the site plan process, and making sure that, things like fencing, things like access, or things like light and noise are all mitigated through the development process. So a bit of commentary there.
With that being said, then maybe I'll make a motion that we have the staff and consultants review M6 and its suitability as a residential, and see if they potentially want to change that to a different classification, but just for review, not to actually change it, because there's no plan submitted. I don't know what the landowners want, but it's bordering commercial, and I'm not sure residential is the best suitability for that. But just have the consultants review it.
Deputy Mayor, second. Any further comment or questions? All in favor? Okay. Well, I think with that, it's been 2 hours. I know this has been to WSP and to our staff. I know this has been a long, arduous process. It kind of encompasses 2 terms of council, and it got changed for you in midstream, so I hand you over. So I appreciate it very much. Appreciate the patience of everyone with all this great event. Thank you very much. With that, I've got the morning, sorry, just as. So I'm going to do all motions together. So council directs staff to continue to proceed with further analysis respecting the recommendations as amended for growth regarding the Strathroy settlement areas contained within the technical evaluation report dated June 2026. And I put in the words as amended. The council directs staff to continue to proceed with further analysis respecting the recommendations as amended for growth regarding the Mountain Bridges settlement areas contained within the technical evaluation report as amended dated June 2026 by WSP. And that based on further analysis, staff prepare the planning justification report and final draft official plan amendment to be presented for consideration for council approval. Someone to bring the motions. Deputy Mayor, second, Councilor Brennan. All in favor? Motion carries. Bylaw, we need a bylaw this evening. The bylaw number 58-26 received first, second, third, and final reading. Deputy Mayor, second by Councilor Palmer. All in favor? Motion carries. Our next meeting is regular council meeting on Monday, July 6th. Motion to adjourn at 6:52. Deputy Mayor, second by Councilor Brennan. All in favor? Motion carries. I like doing it.